welcome back to the Equity Accelerator with host Nair, our podcast. And joining me as always is my main man, Chris Angel. He's our podcast producer and just a great business mind, my former business coach. And here on the Equity Accelerator podcast, we're going to talk a lot about real estate industry related topics, business related ideas, how to grow your business, how to accelerate your equity, how to manage your own personal finances better. I mean, all these things I want to incorporate into this idea of the equity acceleration. And today's topic, we're really going to be talking about, we touched on it in the last episode, but it's like a shifting industry, the shifting sands of what we're dealing with. And I, as a 15 plus year veteran in the mortgage industry, looking out in the landscape and seeing a lot of changes in a lot of adaptation needing to take place for myself. But I know the same is true for real estate agents. Even experienced agents are having to make a lot of adaptations. And it reminds me, I actually grew up in a family of real estate agents. Both my parents are in the real estate business.
Still?
And so as a kid growing up in North Carolina, I would always just hear sort of I would by osmosis hear all these conversations. And my mom, her heyday was mostly in like the early 90s through the 90s and like the early 2000s. That was kind of like her main zone. But I remember in the late 90s, like email really became a thing. And that was kind of like her line in the sand. Like, I don't know, these young kids just doing all these emails. I think I'm going to get out of the business.
Yeah.
So that was her cue awesome. To exit. And now just the velocity of modes of communication and every lender has their own app. And I think that's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. Yeah. And I've been a devoted technology enthusiast. I love gadgets. I love my smartphone. I love websites. I love all the new stuff, but man, I am exhausted with it all. And I think one of the things, and I'm sure my clients are exhausted as well. And one of the things that I'm really trying to grapple with is that maybe I've inserted too much automation and too much technology into my mortgage process for my clients. And how do I inject more human? How do I get out of technology and more back into hand-to-hand meeting, face-to-face, phone calls, and just thoughtful human contact? How do I bring more humanity into my client experience?
Yeah, I love that.
That's something that's it's on the forefront of my mind, and it's a huge driver for why I called you and asked you to help me develop this podcast, to bring a little bit more authenticity and humanity into the way that I'm connecting with people.
I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say a couple of years ago, he was talking about, do the unscalable, do what is not scalable, which was interesting. He's been way ahead of the curve, I mean, as much as social media enthusiast that he is.
Right.
Right.
To say the least. Good grief.
Yeah. I mean, he's prolific, but on the other side of that, he's saying do what's not scalable, which is super interesting because I think he's had a finger on the pulse for longer than most of us have figured it out. And I think the appetite of people is turning back to connection, right?
Have you heard of, I'm sure you've heard of like Dan Heath. I read this book called Moments. They've written 5 or 6 big books.
I think you told me about it actually. Moments. It sounds really
familiar. Moments is that's a huge part of what that book is about, is creating moments in your client experience that is something where people stop and say they didn't have to do that. Like, why did they do that almost?
Right.
And the big story that I think triggered that whole book was a story about this hotel property in Southern California. I guess it's like near Anaheim or near Disneyland or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. It's in the LA marketplace, and it's not number 1, but it's the number 2 rated hotel in all of Los Angeles. And it's called like the Magic Castle or something like that. And I looked it up. I mean, if you Google it, you can see it's just like an old retro it doesn't look like much. It's like an old motel with a pool in the middle, and there's nothing special about it, but they created all these little moments that when you check in, they give the kids these little snack packs
Yeah.
And they really are focused on creating an experience for the kids.
Wow.
So for families to go there, like the kids are like, oh
Yeah.
my God, it's like the highlight of the trip.
That's awesome.
And by the pool, there's this red telephone.
Yes, I've heard of this.
And you pick up the phone and it's an old like rotary phone. And I think you don't dial it. You just pick it up and there's someone there.
Right.
And when you pick up the phone and put it to your head, it says, someone on the other says, this is the popsicle hotline. How can I help you? And you're like, popsicle hotline? What is this? And you're like, well,
so awesome.
We will bring you some popsicles if you'd like one. So, so it just creates this moment for people there. You're like, hey kids, what kind of popsicle you want? And someone comes out with like a silver tray.
Yeah.
And they like present you a popsicle, which probably costs like 25 cents.
Right.
But
yeah.
Everyone is talking about it and you're creating this moment for people. And I think another book that I've read, and it's so hard to think of how to insert these unscalable moments.
I know. Wait, don't do the next book because I have a thought on the telephone thingy.
Sure. I'll come back.
You can hold. Can you hold on to it?
I can hold on to it.
Okay, bookmark that because there's even though the popsicle is only 25 cents, to have somebody, I'm trying to think of this as a business. I'm like, okay, I'm going to earmark a certain percent of my budget for somebody to sit by a phone to then wait for somebody to pick it up to say, welcome to the popsicle hotline. Like, I'm thinking that's a total expense that I don't need right now. I mean, talk about doing the unscalable. You're like, that makes no sense in a business model to have somebody sitting by a phone for a popsicle hotline. And yet,
the book discusses it. They talk about how, like, that if any management operator saw this and we're just like, why don't we just put a refrigerator full of popsicles by the door? And that
would be scalable
themselves.
Yeah, that's scalable. Like,
it's way more scalable, but it's like, who cares?
Right.
So it's all about that friction. It's about that moment of strange connection, right? Where it's like, wow, why? I guess, I don't know. Yeah. It's like, it's an unnecessary connection. I guess that's what makes it special. It's like, wow, you didn't have to, but I'm glad you did.
Maybe we should call this episode that, like, strange connections or,
or just this
awesome
strange
moments.
Humanity. Like, why are you picking the phone and calling me when you could have emailed me? And, and I have so many of these little triggered emails that I've written years ago about disclosures, and we're ordering the appraisal now, and they have videos in them. And I probably need to revisit all those contact points and try to figure out how I can
create a strange
moment where people are like, why is this happening? What's up with this guy? That's what I want to create, is a moment where it just like, it's a pattern interrupt. You've probably heard that idea as well.
Yeah. That's so good. I want to call this episode The Power of Strange Moments. Can I do that?
Sure.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so good.
Do whatever you want. You're the producer.
There's it reminds me of Echo and the Bunnymen. Do you remember that when the Lost Boys came out?
I love that band.
Lost Boys came out in the 80s, and there was like People Are Strange, the song.
They did the remake of the Doors song on the Lost Boys soundtrack. Man, you're speaking my language.
Come on, man. I thought I would when I said that. I thought I would. Yeah, man, this is so good because I feel so let's make this specific to industries. I know a lot of real estate agents will listen to this, which, speaking of, like, there's a lot of opportunity to create strange moments in a transaction because so much of real estate transactions are boring and the same. So what happens when you create some, Seth Godin calls it remarkable. How do we
I was actually going to say, that was the thing I was bookmarking.
Come on.
Seth Godin, the book, The Purple Cow.
Purple Cow. Come on, man. Be remarkable.
Purple Cow. That's the one. That's a great book. Highly recommended. Put it in the show notes. Super short.
Yeah.
It's
so good.
easy to read. And it's just about being remarkable, creating an experience that's, it's so simple it's so simple in its premise, but it's so hard to create over and over and over again because it could take so much heart. It takes so much out of you to be that thoughtful and that on it and organized to create an experience for someone that's truly worth remarking. Truly worth talking about. It's like, oh my God, you'll never believe what happened to me today. My mortgage guy did X, and I don't know what X is, or you'll never believe what happened to me in this. I've been buying this house, and my realtor showed up, and this happened.
Dude,
right? Like, you want to
strange moments. That's the power of strange moments.
Exactly.
And you become remarkable.
Become remarkable, and it's also about how. And this is something about client behavior. I don't know if this has changed or not. Maybe this has always been true, but it's basically like someone comes to me for a mortgage and I take their loan application, I help them understand how it's going to work. We lay out some options. They choose an option. They write the offer. Offer gets accepted, flies through the system. They sign their paperwork. Everything happens exactly like I told them it would happen.
Right.
And off they go. They don't realize how much experience and professionalism and thought went into delivering that sort of frictionless experience for them.
Right.
But it's not overwhelming. In fact, it's just sort of like, yeah, you're a mortgage guy. I called you and I got a mortgage. Like, big deal, right? Like it has to be, you have to actually like create a little bit of friction in there where they stop and they say, wow, I wasn't, or, you know, you have to add something. Yeah. I'm still working on it. I wish I was here.
Dude, I love this
big announcement about this is how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But it's just something that's on my mind that I'm trying to figure out how to create that 5-star experience. And you know, there's lots of little details that go into it, and it's not always that scalable. And that's the point.
But I think the thing that I like about this conversation, and I actually really like the word strange, creating a strange moment, because there's a juxtaposition with it enough. Like to say 5-star service kind of starts to feel like more of the same.
Right. That's the refrigerator. That's like, just put it in a refrigerator. They can just have it for free.
Yeah. But like creating strange moments, there's something about strangeness that makes stuff stand out. And I think a lot of people in business are like, how do I, in a world of technology where technology is replacing functionary businesses and services, where, right, like they're taking the place of the service provider, technology can't create strange moments. Strange moments comes from a thought process about how would I actually like surprise and wow somebody with this strange moment. That's why I love this word. Not to be
kind of a brat about this, but there is an example about computers and technology creating strange moments. If you Google it, there is an artificial intelligence that they try to teach it to tell jokes. And dude, it is very strange. Look it up on YouTube. Artificial intelligence telling jokes. The jokes it tells are just completely absurd. It make no sense. It's like, it's just like word salad. But
I think we might have like, 10 or 20 years of a window for us as humans to create strange moments before AI catches up to us and knows how to create strange moments. So, we got a window.
Exactly. So for our functional careers, we're still in the clear on that one.
Yeah. That's so funny. I kind of want to put it in here, but we could do another episode around this. But I want to talk about the preserve the core, stimulate progress thing from Jim Collins, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that before we start. We actually got sidetracked by a whole other variety of personal improvement business books.
I know, right? No, what I love where this went, because, and I feel like, so in Built to Last, Jim Collins wrote about Built to Last companies preserve the core of who they are. Like they know who they are, and that self-awareness is really important because it insulates you from shifting things, right? Shifting technology, shifting markets. But they also have this ability to stimulate progress by finding technologies or let's not call it technologies, finding the next thing that actually is a fit for who they know themselves to be. And what's different about them to the comparison companies either were always chasing the new shiny thing. So they're trying, like in this world, let's go build an app. Oh, let's go build AI. And so they're always trying to do the next thing with no sense of who they are, what value they provide, what difference they want to make in the world. Or the comparison companies would be so stuck in who they are that they weren't pliable to new things that came up, right? So you see this a lot in business right now. People are resisting Zillow. They're resisting apps. They're like stuck in, I'm the agent, or I'm the financial planner, or I'm the whatever service I provide. And they're missing, right? Like taxis are a great example of this, right? They're like, well, we're going to have our big taxi lobbying power kick in. And meanwhile, Uber's eating their lunch in all sorts of other cities. Like at some point you're going to cave, you're going to assimilate.
I listened to a really, really interesting conversation on another podcast, the Ezra Klein show. He's a media guy. Mostly he's historically focused on politics. He started Vox.com.
Okay.
And now he's kind of becoming more of like a tech intersection between tech and media. Because Vox.com is now like the model for a new media company, which is like podcasts, video clips. They produce a show for Netflix. They write a lot of printed or written articles and opinion pieces and stuff like that. the interview guest was this guy named Anil Dash, and he talked about how these companies like Uber and are doing this like end run around regulatory systems, and I'm trying to think how I can connect it back to what we were just talking about. You're talking about basically just how models are changing so rapidly.
Right.
Companies don't know legacy companies don't know how to keep up. I wish I'm kind of spacing on how I was going to connect it back to this conversation. Anyway.
I got it, but I got it. Like, I think people will, what I hear in that is people will oftentimes they'll be threatened by these tech companies that are doing, an end run around the way an industry is. And then they'll either do one of the two things. Either the technology becomes the enemy and I'm preserving the core of who I am at the expense of, like technology. I'm like, technology's stupid. Well, that's sort of dumb statement, right? Or they're like, oh, I got to get on the Uber train and I got to get into technology, but they forget who they are. Like, this happens all the time. I get so fired up about this because if you go back to the beginning of this conversation about connection and humanity, the only way for you to create that connection is to know who you are and how best you can present who you are to the people you want to serve. That's about preserving the core. Technology or progress is about how you create the strange moment. How you create the strange moment, right, is the progress that you stimulate. But who thought of that strange idea is the preserving the core of like that you want to connect with people this way.
Right. How does that serve the business you're in? Right.
Dude, this is one of my favorite episodes like so far. I'm loving this.
It's only going to get better because I actually it was going to be even better if I remembered that thing I was going to say, but I'll think of it next time. Yeah,
that's right. It's all right. It's all right. Well, we, for the sake of time, we could keep going, I'm sure, because you and I could sit down. If we had beers, it would take even longer, but
I've got beers right out of frame.
Maybe we should do that sometime. We'll turn this into a happy hour show or something. But for now, let's put a period on this conversation and see what happens in the next episode. One of the things I love about you is and I'm not saying this to stroke you, but you're a smart dude. I just love that you're a thinker. You think ahead of where things are going, and you have your finger on the pulse of so many different stuff, like this Vox thing, right? I'm like, I don't know about this stuff. James is smart. And the thing about smart people is I like being around them. I'm like, it just adds something, right? So that being said, I like working with, and I'm sort of now trying to suggest to you listening to this, right? Like you should like working with, people who are thinking about the bigger picture of it all. And James does that. So.
Exactly. I mean, this podcast is designed to attract a conversation between me and the people who think these ideas and these conversations are good. Please reach out to me. Contact me. I'm always looking for new partnerships with real estate agents, financial advisors, of course, clients. If you're thinking about buying a house or refinancing a house, I mean, I'm in the business of helping clients make great decisions around real estate using the mortgage conversation. So the mortgage itself is just a path through which you achieve all these other things. Like I think we talked about it in a previous episode. It's it's the 1/4-inch drill bit.
Right. That's right.
No one wants to buy the drill bit, but they need that hole in the wall to hang their shelves. So that's what the mortgage is, right? So I really feel like I'm in the real estate business and the real estate strategy business. So if anyone is interested in pursuing that conversation with me, just reach out. I'm at pdxhomeloan.com. You can just email james@pdxhomeloan.com. Get on that website, find me there. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. So good. Such a great episode. Can't wait for the next one. Thanks, James. Catch you then.
Thanks, Chris.